Now that we finished putting our scenes on each one of the frames, we can build the 4 boxes. So again, because it's difficult to see the black chipboard on camera, I've got my mock-up here. Remember, we did the inside of the frame on this one. And then I've got the back here, the 3 sides. And I've also just put a little inset in here so that we know which side we're looking at when we're building this. So this would be the side that I'm calling the pretty side, the side with the scene on it that you can see. You can see on the back it just has the plain black cardstock, which is similar to what the actual frame 7 looks like, our pretty side and then our black cardstock back. So let's see how this goes together. We join on the inside, and the scheme here is that you have your back, a side, the front, and we're always looking at the inside, and then another side, and then we will join the top piece like that. And I just have cut my usual 3/4 inch cardstock joining strips that are scored at 3/8, and I'm just using black here, and I would use black in the actual project as well. Just line one up with an edge and butt the next piece right up against it. Put the joining strip down and give that a good burnish. So I'm going to do that for these other joins, and then we'll be back to make it 3-dimensional. I've joined all of my sides, and I've put on the top piece, and then I've also prepped for making it 3D by adding one more joining strip on the end. You only have to put it on one end. Notice there isn't one over on this right side. And then joining strips around the pieces of the top. So when we go to join this, I'm just going to remove some of this backing. Sometimes it's a good idea to do it ahead of time. Sometimes you have to be a little careful about it. So and we'll see how this goes. So the sides, when they come together, because this is a square box, you can just fold this piece over, and then these two will make another butt joint right here, and so you can just bring them down together and give that a burnish. So it's really easy to bring the sides in together. Now, one thing you should notice when you bring it up so that you're looking at it in this position is that what happens at the corners. It's just that the inside corners kind of kiss. They just meet right at the corner. There's no overlapping going on. And that's the same kind of situation we want to create when we put the top in. That there's no overlapping with the sides, that just the bottom edge of the top just kisses with the top edges of those sides. And just kind of bring it in, and you know, there's one of the situations where, you know, was it smart to take off all that backing to start with? I'm not sure, but I'll get it worked out. So I have all of the joins made up here at the top, and I'm just going to reach in and burnish, and then we will be back to do some finishing. Now that I have my box put together in 3 dimensions, it's time to finish the edges. And what I want to do is to finish all of the edges, including the bottom edges. So I'm going to do it in several stages. And the first one is to finish off the entire front edge. I'm going to go around this kind of treat this as a unit. And in order to do that, I've got some of my finishing strips, and they are the same 3/4 inch wide black cardstock that's scored at 3/8 inch and has the 1/4 inch score tape on it. The only difference is they are folded so that the score tape is on the inside instead of on the outside like we have for the joining strips. And in order to have some crisp corners, what I've decided to do is take my 12-inch finishing strip, and this is my 7-inch box, so I've subtracted 7 from 12 so that I know about how far to come in on the side here. And then I've done some scoring. The width of this box in its finished shape now is an 1/8 inch bigger than it was before. So if I come in here and score this at 2.5, then my next score is going to be at 9 5/8, and then that will give me, like you can see here, a piece that will nicely fit around that edge with some crisp corners at the top. And that's the same kind of measuring I would do no matter what size the box is. If it's the 6.5 inch box, I'd figure out, okay, 6.5 from 12 is 2 3/4, and then add the 6.5 plus 1/8, or 6 5/8 to that mark to get my scores that I would have here. And if all that measuring is just too much for you, you can just make some tick marks and then score it based on your tick marks, or you can simply wrap the corners and not fuss with the scoring on to get these crisp edges. So now that we've done that, we can take I'm going to just take the backing off of this one strip. I think I'll work on the back first, and this is what I would suggest for you to work on the back so that you have some confidence by the time you get to the front. So I'm going to take the folded scored edge of my finishing strip right along what is the edge of the box, and it's not really an edge you can see because remember those edges just kiss, but I'm going to bring it up so that that corner is that I just scored is right at the top. And I'm just attaching it on the sides, not on the back to begin with. And then I'll wrap it around the top here, again keeping the edge. I can see where it's lining up with the outside of the back at this point. I'm just coming around there. And now on these sides, you have to kind of extend an imaginary line from where the back is in order to get that crisp corner. Okay, so now we have it in this fashion, and we can come in and to these corners and just cut at an angle no more than 45, and remove. I just removed a little triangle, and I'm going to do the same thing over on this side. I'm letting the point of my scissors just butt up against the corner there so that I don't take too much out. That one didn't quite get where I want, and I don't want to tear the paper. There we go. And so now I should be able just to release this score tape backing all the way around. Wrap my corners, wrap my top. Of course, we would give this a nice burnish on all the sides. And now I'm going to do something similar at the bottom on this side. I already have my piece prepped with my scoring, so the distance in the middle here is the 7 1/8. And I'm again going to start on the side. Line up the bend and the edge Now, of course, down here on the bottom, there's nothing to attach it to. What we want to do, excuse me, is come in here at an angle and make a cut that's at an angle. And let me see if I can put something there so you can see that angle. So I came in right to the corner there, and there's just a little angled cut going on. I'm going to just leave that hanging in space there for a minute. Chase this all around my bottom edge. And then come up on this side. Come in and make that release cut again here. And now we can fold in the little dog ears on both sides. And we can go ahead and attach that bottom on the inside. And I would go ahead and at least give that somewhat of a burnish. And you can come along this top edge right here. And then again, we'll come in and release these corners, just like we did on the top side. Coming in no more than a 45-degree angle. Release our score tape backing. Wrap. Now on this bottom side, you know, it's coming along right along that edge there. So I'm just kind of giving it some help to make that bend. And I'll support it with my hand to burnish it. Then it's just a matter of filling in these little gaps here. And I'm going to repeat that process for the on the front. And of course on the front, and anytime that I'm working, I'm being a little bit ginger because, you know, I've got the seam going on here. So as I flip it around, I watch where my hand goes, etc., so that I don't damage the seam. I just thought it was easiest to be able to see how the seam is progressing, to build them flat. And in the way we have the portal constructed, the only way to see the entire scene is to see it if you build it flat with the frames. So you have this opportunity to be a little bit careful as you're doing the finishing here, but I don't think it will be too much of a challenge. So I'll be back when I've got those edges completed. I have all of the corners covered now with my finishing strips, and I would like to say that yes, obviously there are some joins coming along here on the side. Now I think once the paper gets on here, they are not going to be that noticeable. You have a choice obviously of where you make your joins. You could just do a whole continuous strip down the side here and then miter these corners. I decided not to do that. And but that's obviously an option that you could do. So I'm going to work on my actual boxes now, and I'll be back when that's completed. I have all of my boxes constructed and finished now, and one thing I would like to say is that during the construction you end up with a lot of small pieces of the joining strips, and what I did was I just reverse folded them so that the score tape would be on the inside, and then I was able to use them for all these little fill-in pieces that we saw when we were making the the prototype box. So that's just a way to use up your scraps and get the most out of your materials. So now we'll move on to putting the decorative paper on the boxes. Now we're ready to add the decorative paper to our boxes, and in the construction guide there is a page that details the paper that I used, which paper pad it came from, the name of the paper, the side that is showing, the cut size, and any kind of special notes about that. So each of the boxes is laid out here, and you can use this as your guide. Now, one thing I would like to say is that I checked the measurements, but the way you constructed your boxes, perhaps they will, the measurements will need to be adjusted somewhat. Depends on how much reveal you like to see. So I would just measure and check those measurements for each of your boxes and see if they work for you. Another special note is that on the construction guide it says that for the sides and the top, to cut the top horizontally and the sides vertically. And what that means is if this was our sheet of paper, we would cut the two sides in this direction and the top in that direction. And that makes it so that when you're looking at the top of the box, the paper is oriented in a way that's more pleasing. The other note is for the frame width. Now we have a dimension in the construction guide for the outside of the frame, and then it suggests a 1-inch dimension here across. Now what I would do is what I did was I cut the outside dimension, and then I just checked to see if 1 inch would be working. Some of them it was just perfect, some I had wanted to trim off just a little bit more in order to get a reveal. I didn't have any where 1 inch was too little, but I would again measure your boxes and make sure that your dimensions ended up being similar to mine. I have done some inking on all of my pieces. I used, of course, inking is a matter of personal choice. Just to let you know what I've used, I used gathered twigs, and then I also came with a slight edging of black soot on just the edges. And then I have prepped all of my pieces with score tape around the edges. And what I will do for the larger pieces is probably add either using my ATG in the centers or some glue stick in the centers, just so that, you know, when you're looking at a piece that's this size, that this is a lot of real estate to not have any adhesive at all on. So glue stick or ATG or whatever your preference is. So I have all my pieces prepped, so I'm going to put them on. The background, we have pieces that go on the two sides, the top, the back, and then there's a piece that's labeled the background, and it goes right on the inside here. It's sized so that you have a little bit of a reveal, so don't jam it all the way up to the top. Leave it so that you see a little bit of the black of the box on the bottom edge. One other thing I meant to say was you can see how I have put some post-it notes on all of my pieces here, and that helps me remember which piece goes for what and which side I want to ink and put score tape on. So just a little tip in case there's a lot of pieces to this project. Use some tricks to help you remember what goes where and what's the correct side. A couple of tips when putting on the paper. You can see here I've prepped the frame to go on box number 2, And all I've done to begin with is remove the backing from the top up here, and then I've just folded down the backings on the sides here so that I'll be able to reach up and get those flags. And that, I think, is more helpful than if you have all of the backing removed and then you try to put it on. It can get out of your control. So that's my tip for doing this. And my other tip involves putting on the background, and I think in the glare you can see that this is the background, and we're looking at the back of it because here's the shine is showing where the tape is. So in order to do this, I found it easier to put the box upright and kind of put the paper in so that it is at first just sitting on the front panel. Obviously we want to put it on this back panel, but just so no tape sticks prematurely, just when you stick it, put it in there, aim towards the front panel. And then when it's in this position, then you can see to line up that bottom edge, keeping it back about 1/16 of an inch. I can't flip it or else it'll stick prematurely, but maybe I can if I'm careful here. So what I'm talking about is lining up that about 1/16 of an inch of black reveal there at the back.